This is The Inquiry. I'm Gregory Harms, and yet again, another unedited episode. You get the routine. You understand. He'll be back sometime in June, and then we'll get back to edited episodes. So this episode, this 10th episode, I can't believe it's 10 episodes already. This episode was envisioned to be a sequel to the previous episode. But I think it's going to be its own thing. Hence the different title. Nevertheless, I wanted to add a couple footnotes to the previous episode. The previous episode, we talked about vexatious labels. So we talked about ethnic, and we talked about people of color, and African American, and Latino, and Hispanic. I almost said Hamas. That's weird. Hispanic, Asia, Mediterranean cuisine, so on and so forth. So when Latino, I wanted to add a footnote about Latino. I did not discuss the fact, or did not emphasize the fact, that Latino is also a linguistic designation. We call Latin America because the languages that region has in common are or evolved from Latin. They are considered, the part of the, group of languages we call Romance languages. So Spanish and Portuguese. So hence the term Latin America, and hence our reference to people who live there as Latinos. So that is very much a linguistic designation, and I think has some of the linguistic and logical shortcomings of Hispanic. Though I'll probably use Latino more than Hispanic, but, as I discussed in the previous episode. A second footnote I wanted to add was a viewer sent me a thing about the Mediterranean diet. Now, the Mediterranean diet is a very specific thing. It's delineated, but the name is just as not helpful as Mediterranean cuisine. The Mediterranean diet just means, it basically means what they, just to mimic what they eat in Italy and Greece. Okay. Well, limiting Mediterranean to Italy and Greece is not realistic. It doesn't take into account a very long list of countries that the are washed by the Mediterranean Sea, So I think the name is just as not helpful as Mediterranean cuisine. But the diet, for sure, is a very specific thing, and probably worth following. So that's Mediterranean cuisine, or the Mediterranean diet. So those are my two footnotes: Latino and Mediterranean diet. Okay, so on this episode, I want to talk about a variety of subjects, and the principal subject I think will be cancel culture. But when I was thinking about these labels like African American and people of color and Latino and Hispanic, that moves us into a territory that a lot of people don't want to discuss. I've seen this with students. They're reticent to discuss these topics when it comes to like race and race issues and racism and what we call people, what labels people prefer to be called, and students are afraid of saying the wrong thing, and they don't want to be canceled. I don't know how a student would be canceled, but what they fear is not as important as the fact that there's a fear. They don't want to talk about it. And furthermore, academics, like professors, they don't want to talk about these things either. Because I ask the students in class, I'm like, do other professors talk about this stuff? And they're like, no, hell no. They don't want to touch this stuff with a barge pole because they don't want to be canceled. They don't want to say the wrong thing, and people get out the pitchforks and torches, and it's no good, and then people's careers can be destroyed, and reputations be destroyed. I have been fortunate to not have those difficulties, but I'm going to continue to talk about those things. I'll discuss that in a moment. So there seems to be a prevailing, let's call it white fear, if my experiences are any indication, if they're representative of what's going on in white America, and I'm hearing this a lot. I hear it a lot, not just in the classroom. I hear it in casual conversations and social settings. People don't want to talk about these topics. It's tantamount to talking about politics. It's like, oh, don't want to touch that. Don't want to go anywhere near that. That's problematic, And they get they get jittery, and they get weird, and they don't want to talk about these things. And there's a fear. There is a fear that there's a fear of being canceled, and there's a fear of backlash, and so on and so forth. And I think that's dangerous. I think that's dangerous, that people don't want to talk about these things, and don't want to talk about race and racism and the attendant vocabulary that goes along with it, like what people want to be called, and black and African American and people of color and the rest of it. People have gone quiet, and I think that's a very dangerous thing. Why do I think that's a dangerous thing? Because if I was a neo-Nazi or I was a white supremacist, I'd be delighted that people aren't talking about these things, because I wouldn't want people to talk about those things. And that's why I think it's dangerous. It's like not talking about politics. If we don't talk about politics, then the people in power will just make whatever decisions they see fit to make, and the population will. It's very dangerous. The population becomes detached and disinterested, and therefore uninformed, and if you don't have if your population's not politically articulate and doesn't know what's going on and is uninformed, then you can manipulate that population very easily, and people in power can make whatever decisions they want, and it'll just sort of happens. And the assumption that the people in power, the people on Capitol Hill, the people in the White House, are going to have your interests in mind, and they're just going to make the right decisions. That's living in a land of make-believe. Those people do not have your interests in mind. They have time and again over decades made it very clear that working class priorities are not a priority. That what the population wants is not a priority. I mean, that runs the history of the country. The people in power make decisions, and they pursue their own interests, not your interests, not the working class interests. If your family, works for a living, and you pay bills and so on and so forth, and you worry about things like health insurance and whatever, then you have a certain set of interests, and the people on Capitol Hill do not have those interests in mind. You can read the writings of the Founding Fathers, and they say it out loud. They say it out loud in the Federalist Papers, in various statements. You go through the historical literature, and it's in there. Thomas Jefferson, all the people that we hold in very high esteem, and have a very idealized sort of romantic pictures of. They had their own they had their own class interests in mind, and they sure as hell didn't have your interests in mind. So if we go quiet, then that happens on its own. And what's going to happen? Legislation that gets passed, the way the government's run, it's not gonna do you any good. Does the government provide health insurance? No. No, it doesn't. And why is that? Because the population hasn't demanded it. The population demanded it. If that was a serious issue, you'd have health insurance. You'd have not insurance. You'd have health care. You'd have government provided health care like they have all over the world. All over the developed world. 700,000 Americans declare bankruptcy every year because they can't afford because they can't pay their health bills, because they can't pay medical bills. How many people in Germany declare bankruptcy because they can't pay their medical bills? Zero. Zero declare bankruptcy. How many people in Japan? Zero. How many people in France? Zero. The list goes on and on. People won't declare bankruptcy here. So Americans, they don't want to talk about politics. Then this is what you get. You get the American healthcare system, which is horrendously bad. I speak from experience that this isn't like I'm having an intellectual sort of, I'm not engaging this intellectually. I got skin in the game. I spend a lot of time in MRI tubes, in doctors' offices, and I see the bills pile up, and I see what I pay every month to my good friends at Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to pay those bills. A lot of folks are not able to pay those bills. So the population needs to speak up. And likewise, we live in a country that is deeply racist, and there's a lot of race problems in this country. And why is that? Well, it's because the population doesn't engage these subjects and try to move their own society toward a more rational discourse. Right? So when white people go quiet, it's a very dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing indeed. This cancel culture business. This is. I don't think it's a constructive way to handle social ills, social maladies. We see it with entertainers. We see it with artists. We see it with, people in the public eye. For one reason or another, they're in the public eye. So we're not supposed to read, students. I've heard students say, we really shouldn't read Harry Potter because J.K. Rowling has made ridiculous, ignorant, offensive comments that she clearly doesn't understand. I don't know. And she didn't say it once, like whoops, like she didn't slip. She still sang it. I think the cheese fell off that woman's cracker. I'm not giving her a pass. I'm not letting her off the hook. I just think something happened. Something's wrong with her, I think. Too much money, too much free time. I don't know what the problem is there. But something's wrong. And she's still saying those things about the LGBT community and about trans folk and the trans community, and she clearly doesn't know what she's talking about, and she's saying very insulting, hurtful things, and she's still saying those things. So, okay, fine. So J.K. Rowling is a questionable human being, no doubt about it. So we shouldn't read Harry Potter? Why shouldn't we read Harry Potter? as I say, and what others have, I can't take credit for this, but trust the art, not the artist. You can read Harry Potter, and then the students, I've had students say, well, if we buy a Harry Potter book, then we're supporting J.K. Rowling. She's a billionaire. I don't think you're going to hurt her by not reading Harry Potter. She's fine. Well, she's not fine, but financially she's fine. Financially, she's just fine. I don't think that's the point, though. I think the point is you could read Harry Potter and enjoy it and discuss it, and maybe there's some shortcomings or some flaws or some, racist tropes in the writing. Fine. Read the book and talk about those things. Use the books as a springboard to talk about those topics. I think that'd be fantastic. Why not read Harry Potter? I've seen this in the world of fine arts. Painter Chuck Close, not my favorite painter, but he was very technically impressive painter. And I like some of his work. Some of it's okay. See, if I had an editor, I could show you some Chuck Close paintings. But you just look it up on the Google. Chuck Close. Like the word, close. So what happened with Chuck Close? It came out that he had a really not great relationship, or his track record with women was not great, and he's a disgusting human being, and so there was a backlash against Chuck Close. This was, I can't put a year on this. It was only a handful of years ago, and people were like, we shouldn't put Chuck Close paintings in an art gallery. We shouldn't hang Chuck Close paintings in an art museum. Thumbs down on Chuck Close. Okay, I understand the anger. I get it. Believe me, I get it. So we're not gonna look at his paintings. Take the paintings down. So you're gonna go into the Art Institute, and that's the one that I'm most familiar with, the Art Institute Museum in Chicago, and start taking down paintings of artists who have dubious moral track records. If you start doing that, there's not going to be a whole lot of art to look at. There's going to be a lot of blank walls. I don't think that, you can start taking Pablo Picasso's paintings down, and that's a hefty list of artists and painters with morally questionable track records. We shouldn't look at Pablo Picasso. We shouldn't look at Picasso's paintings. I look at Picasso's paintings all the time. I'm very aware of his biography and his track record, but I still enjoy his paintings. Like, you can still enjoy his paintings. Doesn't mean you endorse his behavior. Look at the paintings. So my long list of celebrities have been flamed, and the people get out the pitchforks and the torches, and even in philosophy, that's what I teach, and that's my academic background. There's this comes up in the field of philosophy. One sparkling example would be Martin Heidegger. You see his book right there. Being in Time. Okay, there it is. That's on my shelf. The cameras, my left and right are reversed. Yeah, right there. Being in Time. There's the Heidegger book. And there's the red one right next to it. That's also Heidegger. So Heidegger was one of the great intellectuals of the 20th century, and his output in the early 20th century was astounding. That Being in Time, that black and white book on my shelf there, is a very impressive piece of work. It's an extremely difficult book to read, but it doesn't make for pleasant reading. But it is creative and intellectually stimulating, and yeah, he was one of the great thinkers of the 20th century, no doubt about it. He is in the pantheon of great philosophers. Now, Heidegger joined the Nazi Party, card-carrying member of the party, and really did his mentor Edmund Husserl, another well-known German philosopher, did him a bad turn and treated him very shabbily. Who was Jewish, incidentally, not incidentally, and he really screwed Edmund Husserl over and joined the Nazi Party. Like, went to rallies and the whole bit. And then at the end of World War II, people were monumentally unimpressed with Martin Heidegger, and it was Jean-Paul Sartre, another well-known philosopher from France, and Hannah Arendt, a well-known intellectual and Jewish as well. It was Hannah Arendt and Jean-Paul Sartre who kind of, said, well, we should read Heidegger. We should kind of, basically forgive him, and people were still pretty incensed with Heidegger's dealings. And right until the end of World War II, right until his dying day, he died in the mid-70s. Right until his dying day, I think Heidegger was like, what? What'd I do? How come everyone's mad at me? Talk about something's wrong with the person. I think there was something wrong with Martin Heidegger. He's genius, but I don't know what was going on. Yeah, I think he genuinely was bewildered by the backlash. Now, which is like, Martin, what don't you get, dude? What don't you get? So say what you want about J.K. Rowling. Martin Heidegger was a card-carrying member of the Nazi Party, and I still read Martin Heidegger. I don't read him, every day, but there are his books on my shelf, and I read Heidegger. Not a lot, but I have read Heidegger in the past quite a bit. I think maybe quite a bit. So I've talked with colleagues about this, about, what do you do? I think you still read him. We don't forget that he was a disgusting human being. But we read his books. There's something there to something there we can benefit from. Why not read it? Why not? And incidentally, the Being in Time and that book to the right, to the right. I guess it's a mirror. Never mind. I'm just talking to myself. Mumbling, more like it. They don't contain Nazi ideology. They don't contain anything ideological. They are purely intellectual. They're purely philosophical. There's no white supremacy in Being in Time. There's nothing ideological about it. So that was later, well after he wrote that book, that he took the turn that he did. Read Heidegger. Just don't forget that he was a disgusting human being. Look at Picasso's paintings. Don't forget he was a disgusting human being. Read Harry Potter. Just don't forget that J.K. Rowling is a disgusting human being, or has become a disgusting human being. You can still enjoy the artwork and engage with the artwork and engage with their output, and just don't forget that who produced it. You can do both. You can read Heidegger and bear in mind that he was a Nazi. Easy. I do it all. I do it. I've done it before. I'll do it again. Yeah, you can do that. It's fine. I think this reaction to people we don't like and things we don't like has produced what we call cancel culture, right? Cancel culture. We just get out the pitchforks and the torches, and there's a burn the witch mentality, and there, we did something. You didn't do anything. You're just not reading Harry Potter. That doesn't make you a revolutionary. It doesn't make you anything. It just means you're a person who doesn't read Harry Potter, or you don't look at Picasso's paintings, or you don't look at Chuck Close's paintings, or you don't read Heidegger, or whatever. I don't think that makes you anything. It doesn't mean you achieved anything. And all this gets folded into what I call Aunt Jemima-fication. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, but that's what I call it. So in the wake of Black Lives Matter and a spate of instances of police brutality, of white cops visiting brutality upon black citizens, the Pepsi company who owns owned Aunt Jemima, decided, okay, we're going to take Aunt Jemima off the shelf. And we're going to replace it with the pearl milling company. So now you can't buy Aunt Jemima pancake mix. You can't buy Aunt Jemima pancake syrup. It's the Pearl Milling Company. And there's a little illustration logo of a old timey mill. And so there you go. No Aunt Jemima. And they've done the same thing with Uncle Ben's rice, and they've done the same thing with which I'm kind of bummed out about, the chef on the box of cream of wheat. I looked at that chef across my entire childhood, eating cream of wheat and looking at that chef. And to this day, when I look at that chef, I get a taste for cream of wheat. I love that guy. I understand these are racist characters. And Jemima was a racist character. It was based on a real woman. Her name was Nancy Green, and she would go to like state fairs and stuff like that and promote the Aunt Jemima brand. And with the do-rag, and she'd talk about how wonderful the South was, and cripes. Yeah, deeply racist, what was going on there, having this woman, play this character and promote this product and talk about how wonderful the South was. The chef on the black chef on the box of cream of wheat, his name was Rastus. I don't think I need to go into that being a racist name, and racism sort of driving what put him on the box in the first place. Same with Uncle Ben's rice. And so all those characters are gone. All those characters are gone, and they've been replaced, and those products have rebranded. Okay. Fine. Is Black Lives Matter about pancakes? Because I don't think it is. I don't think Black Lives Matter is about pancakes. Call it a hunch. Black Lives Matter is about about systematized racism. It's about police brutality. It's about racism. It's about things that are embedded in this culture. And the police brutality is just an expression of what is already sort of baked into this cake, into the American cake. It's not about pancakes. It's not about cream of wheat. And it's not about rice. But there's a cosmetic impulse to take it down, rebrand it, change the name. And we're seeing this with names of schools and names of buildings and those stupid statues in the forest, the Confederate bozo, there's him on a horse, And, people were like, "God, take that down. That guy owned slaves. That guy's a racist." Blah, blah, blah. Okay, should we take those statues down? I don't know. Maybe. I don't think it really matters either way. Does anyone know who those bozos are? Does anyone even care who's on that horse collecting bird droppings? I do a logic segment, and we analyze arguments. That is, premises leading up to a conclusion. So one of the examples I use the Beatles for an example, just to entertain myself while I'm teaching logic. And then I'll ask the students. I'll ask a class. This is a university classroom of 30 students. I'll ask them, how many Beatles were there? And I'll get 2 students who respond in the following way. And this is how they say it, too. This is what they say, and this is how they say it. 4? They're not quite sure. And they sure as hell can't name the Beatles. Now, naming the 4 Beatles would be like naming your uncles. It's like you just know those names, but not in the current university classroom, present day university classroom. They don't know. So they can't even name the Beatles. And you think someone's going to know who that Yahoo is on the horse? And these aren't historically important monuments, by the way. Because I think maybe there was a response to, what people said, you had some people saying, tear them down, and then other people were saying like, well, these are historically important monuments. No, they're not. No, they are absolutely not. These monuments were put up after the Civil War, and they were monuments built to terrible people. And furthermore, do I say furthermore a lot? I think I say furthermore a lot. Moreover, they're not historical monuments. I think the function they serve is to efface history, to erase it, to glorify this slave-owning white supremacist, and to talk about and to change the subject and to say, like the Aunt Jemima brand, how wonderful the South was, how glorious its history was, and so on and so forth. That is not historical. That is the opposite of historical. That is ideological. And so these are not important historical monuments. They're not even historical monuments. They are monuments, but they're not serving a historical purpose at all. These are glorifying really terrible people with terrible histories, and the pre-bellum South, antebellum South was a house of horrors for a segment of the population, that is the black slave population. Pre-bellum. Where'd that come from? Pre-bellum? Whatever. Antebellum. I don't know why on earth I said pre-bellum. And why am I telling my globe? I look at my globe like, you understand. And my globe's like, yeah, Greg, you just say dumb stuff sometimes. I don't know why I'm looking at my globe. I don't know why I said pre-bellum. It just happened. Can we put this behind us now? Can we just move on? Okay. What was I talking about? Yeah, the antebellum South was a house of horrors. The history of slavery in this country, and I've heard white people say, "Well, the slavery in this country wasn't so bad." The history of slavery in this country is the worst instance of slavery that I think you could reference. It was brutal. People were tortured, people were raped, people were whipped, people were shot, people were burned alive. I mean, it was horrifying. I mean, look into it. I mean, you can play make-believe. If you want to live in your imaginary world, I guess that's fine, but it's got nothing to do with the historical record. If you want to really understand slavery in this country, look into the historical record and start turning pages in some scholarly works. And you'll read all about how absolutely horrifying and stomach churning it really was. And then they're going to build monuments, which, So should they take those monuments down? Yeah, I don't think it matters. Leave them up, take them down, who cares? I'd just as soon leave them up, What's the difference? It's like Aunt Jemima. Should Aunt Jemima have been taken off the shelf? Yes, there's absolutely a racist history there. No doubt. That cannot be questioned. But then they kind of give her a makeover. I think it was in the 90s. Was it in the 90s? I think it was in the 90s. They kind of gave her a makeover and made her like a modern black woman. Okay, so the do-rag was gone and the whole Aunt Jemima concept was gone, but, it was just this modern black woman, and she became Aunt Jemima. Should we take Aunt Jemima off the shelf? I mean, it's already off the shelf, but was that the right move? I don't know. I will miss the Krimowit guy. Yes, this is a racist character, but I really liked him. Am I being selfish by saying that? That's part of my childhood. He was part of my childhood. That doesn't mean he should be left on the box, but that doesn't mean he should be taken off either. I don't know. I say just leave him on the bloody boxes. Uncle Ben, leave him on the box, or take him down. I don't know. Tomorrow I'll have a different opinion. I don't know my opinion. My opinion right now is leave this stuff where it is. Leave it. And then tomorrow I'll probably change my mind. I don't know. Send me an email and let me know what you think. So, yeah, we're just doing cosmetic work. If we're taking the monuments down and taking Aunt Jemima off the box, then we're doing cosmetic work. Pre-bellum South. God, that's still bothering me. It's ridiculous. All right, we're moving on. I thought we agreed we'd move on. Okay. So we're doing cosmetic work, and it's covering up the actual issues. The actual issues are systemic racism. The issues are the prison system. There's one. That's talk about systemic racism. 6.5% of the population are black men. There aren't that many of them. 6.5%, that's a pretty small number. And yet, if we look at the prison population, it's 42% black male. Well, something's up there. You don't need the sharpest analytical mind, and you don't need to have a command of advanced math to see there's something wrong there. 6.5% of the population, 42% of the prison population. Well, that kind of tells its own story. That tells us everything we need to know about the prison system, why it exists, and what it's functioning as. It's functioning as a storage facility for people who are mentally ill, at the low end of the income distribution, and black. That's your prison system. It's got nothing to do with rehabilitation. It's a joke. If we wanted true rehabilitation and dramatically lower recidivism rates or rearrest rates, we'd imitate what's going on in Norway. And there are some prisons in the United States. In South Dakota, there's one in South Dakota. There's one elsewhere. They're starting to get the hint. We could do this a much better way. What's going on in Norway is very impressive, and you can look it up online. Bastoy is one Bastoy, Bastoy prison, and I'm gonna mess up the name now. I think it's Helmand. Oh, cripes. I don't want to give you the wrong name. Is it Helmand? I don't think it's Helmand. It's close to Helmand. You look up Bastoy, you look up Norway prisons, and you'll bump into it. It starts with an H. There's a documentary about it called Breaking the Cycle. It's a fantastic documentary. It's really good. And also, if you haven't seen 13th, that's a oh, Jesus. Everyone should watch that documentary. There's two documentaries, 13th and Breaking the Cycle. And the Breaking the Cycle is about this other Norwegian prison. And they got rearrest rates. I mean, the rearrest rate in the United States is north of 60%. The rearrest rate in those prisons, yes, they're smaller, but nevertheless, their rearrest rate's like 16%. Which is a dramatic improvement. So I would watch those two documentaries. Then you'll learn a lot about the prison system. 13th, you learn a lot about the American prison system. In Breaking the Cycle, you learn about they visit a New York prison, and then they talk about Norway as well, and they kind of compare and contrast. It's really well done. You're doing cosmetic work. You're doing you're just covering up this deeper set of problems by doing something quick and easy, and then you can kind of dust your hands off and feel like you've done something when you've done practically nothing. And addressing these bigger, deeper problems entails us talking about these deeper problems. I mean, we can start there. We can just start talking about it, And we just like to put stickers on things and make cosmetic modifications and talk about woke and DEI and critical race theory and all this other stuff. Woke and DEI and critical race theory. Why do we have to have names? Why has there got to be a special thing called DEI? Why is that? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. You see it in the news a lot. And there's definitely a conservative, backlash against these types of things. Woke, which comedian Bill Burr really hit this on the head. I won't go into it, but it's really funny. It was originally a Black American term that has been appropriated, and now you're just painting a bullseye, because the conservative set they don't want anything to do with addressing these problems, because as far as the conservative set's concerned, these problems don't exist. So it's just a bunch of white liberals talking about being alert to injustice and talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Are they for the opposite? And critical race theory. You can just call critical race theory history. Why do you got to call it something else? Because you're just painting a bullseye, and you're just handing a gift to the racist conservatives on Capitol Hill and other racist conservatives. Can we stop calling it conservative? If I can police the language for just a minute, there's a word that is really, it's right there. I'm pointing to another book. Edmund Burke, Reflections on the Revolution in France. It is the founding text of political conservatism. I highly recommend reading it. I couldn't say I agree with him to the letter, but there's a lot in there. And from the perspective of Burke, I'm probably up to a point conservative. I think he makes some reasonable arguments in that book. But that's sure not how the word's being used today. Conservative now seems to mean we want this country to be a white Christian heterosexual nation. And I've asked many people, and I've yet to get an answer, how is that different from Nazism? Seeking this country to be a white Christian heterosexual nation. If you can explain to me how that's different than Nazism, I look forward to reading your email. I would like that explained to me, how that's different, because that seems identical to what the Nazis were trying to achieve in Germany. That's what conservatism seems to be. It doesn't seem to be. It seems to be contempt for the working class, contempt for the poor, contempt for anyone who isn't white, contempt for anyone who isn't heterosexual. That seems to be the agenda there. And what that has to do with conservatism, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's just petting a bullseye on these issues, and you just give those the conservatives, the quote unquote conservatives, something to bellyache about and rally against. You know, you don't got to call it critical race theory. You can just call it history. You don't got to call it DEI. You don't got to call it woke. Just, I guess I am kind of policing the language, but these terms are not helpful, and all you got to do is read the news to see how problematic they are. So if you stop using them, then that's that. There's a lot of backlash against these terms. There's also a lot of backlash against the concept of white privilege, and there's one that I don't think I use the term white privilege because I think white America hears that and they think, oh, white privilege. So we all live in the lap of luxury. The anger. I mean, it arouses anger. That term, white supremacy, or excuse me, white supremacy. Pre-bellum, white privilege. It doesn't mean that white people living off the fat of the land, just living in the lap of luxury. Most white people work for a living, have bills, sweat those bills, have medical bills, are worried about health insurance. Most white Americans have real problems, real issues. Real political issues, real political problems that could be handled and solved on Capitol Hill if the population spoke up. But it doesn't. White privilege does not mean that you live in luxury. It just means that there's a dominant demographic in the country. I mean, if you Google image U.S. presidents, that'll tell you a lot about who is in a position of power. in the country who has been in a position of power. Now, that's not to say that everyone is in a position of power, because most white Americans are not in a position of power. But there is a power demographic. You know, I've talked to Black and Latino students for years, and when they get pulled over by a cop, they're terrified. When I get pulled over by a cop, the only thing, and I mean the only thing on my mind is, how much is this ticket going to cost? Two things. I'm sorry, two things. One, how much is the ticket going to cost? And two, I'm probably going to be late for wherever I'm going. That's it. I'm not afraid of the cop. I'm not a tough guy, hardly. But I can't even walk. But I don't even really drive anymore. But when I drove, I wasn't afraid of the cop. I looked him in the eye. He knew I wasn't afraid of him, because he was probably roughly my age. Chances are he was white. Chances are better he was white. And if I'm wearing a sport coat or wearing professional attire with a white dress shirt, maybe, he definitely wouldn't play games with me. And he wasn't going to play games with me anyway. I'm just going to get the stupid ticket and be late. That's it. But if you're Black and 20 years old and a cop pulls you over, that's a different experience. Your heart's beating. You're nervous. 10 and 2. Yeah, you're scared, and that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. That I'm not scared when a cop pulls me over, but a Black 20-year-old kid is terrified. That's privilege, folks. And if you don't like it, then too damn bad, because that's what that is. That's privilege. I'll tell you a story. Where I used to live, there was a Jewel right near my apartment. It was like, I don't think it was a mile away. So I would go there a lot, and I'm a bachelor, so families go and fill the shopping cart, and they made these huge grocery missions. But I would just go to the Jewel and I'd buy 4 nectarines. I'm a bachelor. I was in there 3 days a week, because it was right by my apartment. I'm like, oh crap, I need tomatoes, and then I just go buy some tomatoes, whatever, or buy some milk or something. So I was in there a lot. To cut the story short, I was in there a lot. 3 days a week at least. And grocery stores have undercover security. They walk around with a shopping cart with like a loaf of bread in it, and they're looking for shoplifters. So I knew who the undercover security guard was in this Jewel. I didn't know the guy. I just knew that that's him. The guy walking around with a loaf of bread, like looking down aisles and acting weird. I'm like, that I know that's who he is. I saw him in there all the time, and he had to see me in there all the time. He had to see me in there. I was in there a lot, so he had to recognize me at least. I'm sure he did. So one day I go in, and this is before I quit drinking. I went to the liquor department, and I was buying some wine or whatever. And I'm in the liquor department. There I am. I'm like kind of looking like, what do I want to get? Blah, blah, blah. And I catch something out of my peripheral vision. It's him. He's scoping me from behind the bookshelves, from behind the shelves. I'm like, what? Does he think I'm going to stuff this wine bottle in my coat and walk out of here? He's seen me in this Jewel 100 times. So I make eye contact. I make eye contact with him, and I cut him a look like, do we have a problem? Now, again, I'm not a tough guy, but I'm like, I just look at this guy like, what? Do we have a problem? And he turned on his heels and walked away. Now, if I was that Black 20-year-old kid, or, well, shouldn't be in a liquor department, 21-year-old kid, is that the way that would have gone? No. That's not the way that would have gone. Black students have told me that when they go to the mall, they get tailed by security all the time. For them, it's called going to the mall. And security guards will follow them and watch them as they, poke around Macy's or whatever. Yeah, all the time. I've been to Macy's quite a few times. I've been to the mall, so on and so forth. I've never had a security guard follow me. Not once. But I'm talking to these university students who are like maybe 19, 20 years old, and they say it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And it's happened to me 0 times. Well, you don't need to be Sherlock Holmes to put that one together. That shouldn't be hard to figure out what's going on there. And these are just 2 examples, security guards, the security guard in the mall and then the security guard at the undercover security at the grocery store. And this is just, and then the cop. I guess the cop, that's another example. The cop pulling you over. That's just a couple examples, of things people have to deal with. People who aren't white have to deal with that I do not have to deal with. I can just go by. Being white and male, it ain't bad. There's a whole list of things I don't have to worry about. I can't imagine being a woman in this society, and the crap you have to put up with, and the creepy behavior, and comments about how you look and so on and so on. I can't even imagine. And then people who aren't white, they have to deal with a whole different set of stuff. And then people who are female and not white, they get both lists. I don't get any list. I just go about my day. And if the person at the checkout jerks me around or is in a bad mood or whatever is rude to me, I don't think, oh, that person doesn't like me because I'm white. That doesn't even enter into my mind. No one makes lewd comments to me. No one whistles at me. I don't deal with any of that stuff. But if you're a woman, you got to deal with that stuff. And if you're not white, you got to deal with that stuff. And I don't have to deal with any of it. That's white privilege. Being able to go through your day carefree, just like a cool breeze, whistling and going through your day. That's privilege. And again, folks might not like the word, but that's what it is. So should we use the phrase white privilege? Maybe it should be called something else. I don't know. I can't think of what it should be called. But maybe you could email me some ideas. But yeah. It's... I wouldn't trade it. Being able to go about my day. Being a member of being white and male, I'm definitely in the privileged power demographic, for sure. So, I don't know. I have no idea what the next episode's going to be. I think I said that the last episode, but now I really don't know. I have no idea. Think of something. There's plenty of stuff to talk about. Prebellum. It's ridiculous. It's going to bother me for the rest of the day. All right. I ordered stickers. The inquiry stickers. They're going to be really cool. And you can get free stickers if you want. Just send me an email. Same as the. I got notebooks left over too. So if you want a notebook, send me an email with your name and address. Notebook in the subject heading, and give me your address, and I'll send you a notebook for free. I'll send you a notebook and some stickers. I can't wait till those stickers show up. I'm very excited. I'll put one on my car. That'd be cool. And then people will see it and be like, what's this inquiry all about? And there's the URL, inquiry.us. Yeah, get some good exposure there. Slap that on the back of the Jetta. Hell yeah. Okay. I'll see you on the next episode of The Inquiry.